Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Equipment. Okay, so before I get into all the recommendations for the best equipment to purchase, I just kind of want to preface this module a little bit on the idea. This sounds a little bit cliche, but do not look at this module, neither the software module, as expenses that you're incurring, more so investments that you're making into yourself, because of course it's going to be investment into your business, because if your personal brand does well, that's going to reflect and correlate into your business doing well. However, your personal brand is what's going to follow you for the rest of your life. Like, you're creating your reputation through social media. You're creating an online presence. Do not look at these things as expenses or bad things. Look at these things as just the cost of playing the game if you want to win the game. With that said, MIDI Launchpad is our entry-level program that is geared towards entrepreneurs doing 0 to 10K a month within their online business. So I kept that in mind whenever I was scripting this module, and I created 2 different budgets for today's video. The first equipment list within this module will be made for a $500 budget before tax. I couldn't fucking get it below $500 after tax. First equipment list is $500 before tax. And then I also created a second equipment list that will be made for a $2,500 budget, again, before tax. One thing to note is that some of you will 100% overvalue the need to have the best camera in the world. And then the other half of you will completely undervalue the need to having just a professional looking setup. Now, am I saying that you can't make a mediocre setup work? No, of course not. You 100% can. And for context, this is what my first video looked like. This is the best strategy to create viral videos. I was recording on my iPhone 11 at the time with the wrong settings. I was sitting in a 4-year-old gaming chair. I was using a $20 ring light that was given to me by my mother for Christmas that year, and only a $150 microphone that I saved up for the year prior, that way I could have a better mic whenever I was gaming. And to top it all off, I could not afford a teleprompter. So I put like this fucking notepad, I had a Windows at the time, so it was the notepad app, and I would stick it at the top of my monitor. And then I would just read off the top of my monitor because my camera was a little bit above. I was using a webcam. For the first video, I was using a webcam, then I switched to my iPhone. But I had the top of my monitor with a fucking notepad with my script, with my webcam just right above it. That way it didn't look like I was reading off of a script, which now that I look back on it, it was pretty fucking obvious. But at the time, I thought it was fucking working for me. So obviously I did not have the best setup in the world, but 6 videos later, with the exact same setup that I just mentioned, I got my first 1 million viewed video. And that video led me to making my first 10K month. So with that being said, you can 100% make any setup work. However, I'm not gonna lie to you, does having a better setup help? Undoubtedly. And the quality of video, and of course your appearance, is going to be your first impression to the viewer, so it should be treated as such. With that said, don't get caught up in the idea of thinking that you need $1 billion setup, but also don't be so naive to think that having a quality setup does not matter. Now, before we get started, if you check below this module, you will find the Notion page that has all of the products listed, and then as well as also some YouTube tutorials on how to use the products themselves. So any point to this module, you can come back to it and pretty much just reference back to whatever you wanted to purchase, or whenever the products get delivered and you have no fucking clue how to use them, then you can use this sheet as kind of like a home base to find the tutorials on how to use the products you just bought. Now, with that said, without further ado, let's go and hop into today's equipment list. Okay, so like I mentioned earlier, there's going to be 2 different lists based on the 2 different budgets, $500 and $2,500. Now, I'm going to start this list off with the $500 equipment list. However, if you know that you're just more of a $2,500 budget kind of guy, then you can go ahead and skip to this timestamp that I'll have the editor put up right now. So if your budget is $2,500, go ahead and skip. However, if you are a $500 budget, then let's go ahead and begin with your equipment list. All right, so if you only have $500 to spend, you're honestly not in that bad of a boat. Now, $500 obviously is not going to get you some crazy shit. However, it will get you pretty far. Now, in my eyes, there are 4 major components that play into having a good looking video. You need a decent camera, you need some audio, you need some lighting, and as well as you also need a scene, aka a fucking background. And by the end of today's equipment list, we're going to make sure that we have all 4 components checked off by maximizing the amount of value that we can get for our dollar, which in this scenario is $500. Push into something a little more comfy, as you guys can see. With that said, let's go and hop into both of our equipment lists, the $500 budget and then as well as the $2,500 budget. Now, I'm going to start this module off with the $500 budget. However, if you know that you're a kind of guy that you want to start out at the $2,500 budget, then I will have my editor throw up a timestamp here. And just go ahead and skip over to that timestamp, that way you can get to the budget that you're looking for. However, if you have $500 and that's what you're looking to spend, then let's go ahead and hop into today's equipment list. All right, so if you only have $500, honestly, you're not in that bad of a boat. Now, of course, $500 isn't a crazy amount of money that's going to get you a lot of cool shit. However, it will get you pretty far. Now, whenever it comes to creating what I would call a good looking video, there's about 4 major components that play into it. You have your camera, you have your audio, you have your lighting, and then lastly, you have a scene, aka you could call it a fucking background if you want. Now, at the end of this list, we're going to make sure that all 4 of these are checked off by maximizing the amount of value per dollar, aka per $500. So let's start with component number 1, the camera. Most of everyone watching already has a $1,000 camera within their pocket, so let's go and take advantage of that. With that said, hopefully you have 1 out of 3 phones. You either have an iPhone, you have a Samsung, or for some god-awful reason, hopefully you have a Google Pixel. Now, if you're over 30, then statistically, you most likely have a Samsung. And to that, I cannot help you because I've never had one. And if you have a Google Pixel phone, then I also can't help you because I don't think I've ever seen one before. But what I have done for you is I've done a ton of research to find the best individual that can. I found 2 YouTube videos for you guys. One goes over how to optimize your Samsung camera, and then the other one goes over how to optimize your camera for a Google Pixel. So you can either pause this video here and look up the YouTube videos, or also link them in the Notion doc below that we talked about earlier. Okay, and then for the people that have an iPhone, the same people of the world, I'm gonna take the time to go over what settings you need to change to optimize your iPhone's recording settings to ensure that you're maximizing the quality that you can get from a $1,000 camera. All right, let's go ahead and get started with this bad boy. Alrighty, so what you wanna do is you wanna go ahead and search for your settings app. Now mine is right there, however, I'm gonna search it just for you guys. Just go to your search bar and then type in settings. And then once you find the settings application, go ahead and open it up. From there, you should be left with this little settings list. However, if you scroll up just a little bit, you'll notice that there's a little bit of a search bar at the top. So we're gonna go ahead and utilize that. So click on the search bar and then type in camera. Once you typed in camera, you should see the camera application. It's the 4th one down. So go ahead and click on that. And then from that, you are where you need to be. Now there's 3 main settings that we want to switch here. We want to switch the quality in which you record. We want to switch the format from high efficiency to much compatible. And then this will turn on the grid. So that's exactly what we're going to do. So number 1, let's go and change the quality of recording. Go ahead and look at the top setting here, record video, and click on that. Okay, so from here, you only want to choose 2 different options. You can either choose 4K at 24 FPS or 4K at 30 FPS. Now, the industry standard for any kind of cinematic film, so a lot of times movies and stuff like that, the industry standard is going to be 24 FPS because it has like that, I don't know, that cool little motion blur, some people say. So I just go with what I get recommended to by the professionals at 24 FPS. However, if you enjoy 30 FPS more, you can go ahead and go with 30 FPS. That is pretty much all you need here. Once you have that switch to 4K at 24 FPS, you can go back, and then you want to go ahead and open the 4th one down at formats. Once you're here, you want to switch from high efficiency all the way down into most compatible. Now what this will do is if you're recording, especially whenever it gets a little bit dark, if you have it on high efficiency, a lot of times you'll see like that little bit of grain within your video. Most compatible just kind of reduces that amount of grain. And it will make the recordings much more heavier, so it will make the file size much more. However, I 100% believe it's worth it, especially if you're looking to record on your phone. Then lastly, we have Apple Res. I wouldn't recommend it, especially if it's a personal phone. It's just gonna take up so much. It's gonna take up so much fucking space whenever it comes to recording. And then once you guys have clicked to most compatible, you guys can go back, and then the last thing you want to do is go and click on grid. Now, what does grid do? It basically creates the thirds on your video, so it'll have lines whenever you're recording. That will be important later. We're not going to go over this module because we'll go over that in the recording module, but just go and turn it on and it will be useful later. And once you guys have these settings, what you guys can do is just go ahead and go over to your camera, and then from here switch to video. Then you should be ready to rock. At the top right, it'll show you what you're recording in. So you're recording in 4K and 24 FPS. And from that, you're pretty much good to go. If you want to, you can click on the screen and you can lower the exposure to shot. Whenever I was recording on my phone, I did this a lot because I don't know if you guys have noticed, I like my shot to be a little bit darker than usual. So that's my preference. But other than that, that's pretty much all you can do. And you should be good to go. Just go ahead and start recording. Now with that said, manually changing some things. So for example, on cinematic, you can change the actual aperture to the shot and all that good stuff. If you guys want to complicate the process for a better shot, so it is more complicated and it is more things you have to learn and do and set up, especially if you're not recording in one spot. However, if you see it is worth it to get the 10% extra increase, then I will show a video right here and you guys can watch on how to use the cinematic form within your iPhone. But you have to have an iPhone 13 or above for that if you guys don't have it. But I always use the video, so that's what I'm gonna teach you guys to use. And that is pretty much it. That's all you have to it. So once it says 4K 24 FPS to the top right, you have this grid on your phone, and then as well as also it's switched to most compatible. You guys are officially done with your iPhone. Also, an extra tip that I forgot, whenever you are recording, ensure that you always record with the back camera rather than your front camera. I know it's a pain in the ass because you can't see yourself while you're speaking, and it's not as ideal. However, you're going to get a much better shot whenever you record from your back camera. Outside of that, then your camera should be completely optimized. Now, once your phone is optimized, then you will need something to hold your camera, also known as a tripod. Now there's a big selection of phone tripods out there. However, the best value for money that I was able to find is this one right here, the Elite Hood iPhone tripod. Now this tripod comes out to be around 50 bucks. It's sturdy, it should be tall enough for whatever you're trying to use it for. And most importantly, it's going to be easy to travel with. Now in the past, whenever I was first starting, I bought cheaper tripods than this. And trust me, just fucking spend the 50 bucks. I have bought at least 5 tripods within my lifetime, a lot of them being cheap and a lot of them having to be thrown away. Just spend the 50 bucks. This is easily the best tripod that you can get for the value of money. And you guys, I promise, as long as they're not doing any crazy shit, that you guys will be happy with your purchase. And then that concludes components number 1. You now have a camera. So let's move on to components number 2, which is going to be audio. So let's move on to components number 2, audio. Now, audio is where we're going to splurge a lot of our budget, and that is just because people will watch a video with low quality image. So for example, on TikTok, people watch low quality images all day, but people will not sit down and watch a video with shitty audio. So with that said, there are 2 different microphones that I'd recommend at this budget for 2 different circumstances. Now, if you're going to be on the go a lot and you're going to be recording dynamically, which means you're going to be recording in the gym, or maybe you're recording while walking around and showing a home to a client, whatever it might be, if you just don't feel like you're going to stay still whenever you're recording, you're going to be recording in different places, then the mic that I'd recommend to you is the Rode Wireless Go 2. This mic will run you around 220 bucks, and you can pretty much do everything that you need. You can pretty much clip on every single piece of your clothing, or even sometimes if you get creative, on some of your body parts. This mic is super easy to set up. It is super easy to get good audio out of it, and there is a bunch of tutorials out there on YouTube on how to use it. It is my personal go-to mic whenever I have to record anything on the go. So if you know that you're going to be recording in a bunch of different places, unlike me, then this is the mic for you at this budget. But if you are going to be me, recording in pretty much the same place every single day, then I recommend the Elgato Wave 3. I used this mic for years and I loved every single second of it. It is a USB mic, which means unlike, let's say, for example, the Rode, there's a lot of complication. You have to get an XLR cable, then you have to get an interface and all that other shit, and then you have to start playing around with the EQ. Just a pain in the ass most of the time. For a USB mic, all you have to do is just plug and play, and you're ready to get some good audio out of it. And with that said, there's a bunch of different USB mics out there, like Blue Yetis, fucking a Quadcaster, all these different shitty mics. In my opinion, this is the one that is ranked above all of them. The Elgato Wave 3, like I said, is super easy to use, and it's also super easy to make sound professional by using OBS filters. Now, if you don't know what OBS filters are, or if you don't know what filters I'm talking about, then I will throw up my favorite YouTube tutorial that you can just go ahead and grab it from. This will go over exactly how to use OBS and set up the filters to ensure that even though you don't have the most expensive mic in the world, it still sounds really fucking good. And if you don't want to search it here, then it's also in the Notion doc mentioned earlier. Now, with all of that said, it is a condenser microphone, so I do recommend that you guys buy a couple of attachments to go with it. Now, the first attachment, and as well as the most obvious attachment, is that you probably will need a boom arm to mount the microphone onto your desk. And there's 2 different types of boom arms that you can get. You can get a low profile boom arm, which is what I have here, or you can get a high profile boom arm, which I'll show it on the screen. Either way, it's just personal preference. A low profile extends horizontally and a high profile extends vertically. Either or, whichever one you pick, both of them sit at the price range around 57 bucks, so not too bad. And that's the first attachment. Now, the second attachment that you want is actually going to be a bundle that comes with the microphone. And this bundle includes a pop filter and then as well as a shock mount. Now, what a pop filter will do is it'll stop the plosives from being so harsh. So for example, your P's and your T's don't come off as harsh. And then the shock mount will basically, let's say, for example, if you were to hit your desk or anything of the such, it would stop the frequencies of messing with the audio. So all that good stuff whenever it comes to you hitting your desk or something, a door slamming, whatever it might be, that might make the mic move slightly. A shock mount is just there to reduce the amount of audio disturbance. And again, both of these things are really easy to add on and set up. And that concludes the audio component. These 2 are the best options in this budget for your audio, in my opinion. The Rode Wireless Go 2 for those that record in different places, and the Elgato Wave 3 for the guys that just want to sit and record in the same place all year round. And that's audio. So next on the list is going to be lighting. All right, so for your lighting, just to keep it simple, the best 2 lights for this budget, in my opinion, are going to be these lights from Mountain Dog. They come in the kits of everything you need, so they give you a diffuser, they give you a stand for the lights, and plus, in the kits, you get 2 lights. Now, is it going to be the best lighting in the world? No, of course not. But is it going to be amazing value for the money to get started? Yes, it is. You can set up a simple light setup by just using one of these lights as a key light and then another light as a fill light. With these 2 and that kind of setup, I promise you that you'll get pretty decent lighting. And again, if you do not know what a key light or fill light means, then here's a YouTube video that will walk you through exactly on what that means and how to utilize these 2 lights to the maximum capacity. And then once you get these 2 lights set up, really the only thing that you'll need after this is just to set up the scene to use all of this new equipment on. So at this point, if you got the Elgato mic, then you've currently spent $411 before tax. And then if you bought the Rode Wireless 2, then you spent $361 before tax. So that leaves you with about 89 bucks to 139 bucks to spend on your quote unquote scene, aka again, your background. Now for your scene, this is completely personal preference. I can't just give you 20 different products that you can buy today and just fucking plop up behind you and it's gonna look fucking sick. But what I can do is I can give you guys some inspiration to do so. So if you look in the Notion doc, you will find 20 different scenes that I think look pretty fucking good. And then you can use these scenes to inspire and build your own background to offer those inspirations. Now, before you blow your last 100 bucks on Amazon looking for some cool little products you can put in the back, one thing I will say is you typically do not have to go out and buy a bunch of shit for your background. And I'm speaking from experience. Most of the time, especially with all the clients that I've had previously, everyone pretty much already has like a really good foundation of what their background can be within their home. So before you go on Amazon look around your home, see if there's anything that might look cool within a video. So for example, for me, that was the two plants. These two plants used to be in my bedroom. I had this little light here. I've always had this light. Thought I might bring it in here. And then the remarkable, that's not really about the background. Honestly, don't have too much of my background, but then everything else I paid for. I mean, obviously the studio display and all that good stuff was something I had in my bedroom as well. The only thing that I bought for this setup was the desk, and then as well as that little Instagram cool counter thing. And that is pretty much it. Oh, and then also the Rodecaster Pro 2 interface. But that wasn't necessarily for the setup, that was more so. Yeah, okay, it was. Okay. So realistically, I only bought those 3 things and I had everything else in my home. Anyways, I just fucking yapped. Basically, look in your closet, see if you have anything cool, and then use that for your background. And then if you don't, then go ahead and look at the bottom of the Notion doc and find some inspiration from the setups that I recommend there. But with all this being said, one recommendation that I can give you guys is towards the famous RGB lights that I always use, or that I used to use in my last setup. Every single RGB lights, whether it's the light strips that's behind my studio display right there, or the famous DEVIN JATHO light bars in my old videos, or even the fucking light bulbs that's, I don't even know what do you call that? In my fucking room. Yeah, my light bulb was in my room that turns on the lights. They all come from one brand, and that brand is the brand named Gove. All right, so I got my phone here. Now, the cool thing about Gove and the reason why I like it so much is because it gives you an application. And what this app does is it allows you to control every single light within your home through the application as long as it's a Gove light. Now, everything in my fucking room is always going to be Gove. The fucking RGB lights behind this is Gove. The little lights on my face, I'll show you guys right here. If I want to, I don't want to fuck up the lighting because I don't have to fix it. Let's just say, for example, I want to turn this one off. So look at my face, look at the blue. I can click off and it'll turn it off. There it goes. Okay, cool. So that little blue that's on my face is no longer there. I can just control the entirety of my setup through this one application, and it's more than useful. So, and I even have it on my fucking lights above me. So if I want to turn on this light here, I can click on, and then I'll turn on 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that's what the Gove application does. So I will, cool. All right, they're all turned off. So this is why I recommend Gove. It's a sick fucking program. All of the lights you can get, so that's going to be RGB. They have a bunch of different lights. It doesn't have to be like the little light strips or even like the old lights I used to use for my own videos, but they can be a bunch of different shit. They can be LED lights, whatever it might be. Just check out the website to see if you like anything there. And that is my one recommendation whenever it comes to building out your scene. And that concludes on what I would see as the perfect setup for beginners that stays below the $500 budget mark. All right, so now that we've completed our first list of the $500 budget equipment list, let's move on to number 2, which would be the $2,500 budget. Now, for those who just skipped here and didn't really watch a damn thing from what I said in the $500 budget portion of this video, basically in my eyes, there are 4 major components that play into having a sick looking video. Number 1, a camera. Number 2, good audio. Number 3 is good lighting. And then as well as number 4 is going to be your scene, aka your background. Now, in this portion of the module, we're going to use our $2,500 budget to maximize our value per dollar to get the best possible setup. So let's go ahead and kick off this list with the first component mentioned, the camera. Now, for this price range, I personally like the Sony a6400. It doesn't overheat, it records in 4K, and it does pretty much everything that you need a video to do that's under $1,000. It's a great first camera to use whenever you first start out, and it's also very, very easy to set up with a ton of YouTube videos around it. Now, I recommend that you only buy the camera and not the kit. And then once you only buy the camera, that's whenever you buy everything else separate. And that is because whenever you buy like the little Amazon kits with like a 1,000 different things, you're gonna get a bunch of shit that you honestly don't need. And then as well as also the things that you do need, you're gonna get a worse quality because you're paying for the bundle and not for that one particular thing. So the things you need to buy separate after you get the camera is you need a lens, you need a memory card, and then lastly, you need a battery. So here's the best lens for the camera. It is a 16mm lens, and it also has a super low aperture setting. Now what a low aperture setting means is it allows you to get that cool blurry background that you see your favorite YouTubers use. Next, you need a memory card, and the memory card that I recommend is that you get a minimum of 256 gigabytes as long as you're recording in 4K. And the reason why I say that 256 gigabytes is a minimum is because I cannot tell you how many times I've recorded hours upon hours of fucking footage, and then my camera is too full and it just randomly stops between recordings. So I'll record 40 minutes for absolutely no reason because my camera storage is full. So at the very least, if you're recording with 4K, you're gonna have really big files. So I recommend that you get the 256 gigabytes. If not, get the 512. And then lastly, you'll need a battery. And to be more specific, you're gonna need two types of batteries. You're gonna need a dummy battery and then as well as a real battery. Now a dummy battery is a continuous battery that you can plug into your camera. That way your camera never dies. And then a real battery is gonna be a rechargeable battery that you can plug into your camera and move around with. No matter what style of content that you're going to create, whether it's going to be moving around or you're recording the exact same spots like me, I recommend that you get both, and both are around 30 bucks a piece. And that's it. That's pretty much all you really need in regards of using your camera. A lens, both batteries, and then as well as a memory card. However, you do need something to put that camera onto. So that brings up the topic of needing a tripod. And at this price point, I do not think you can go wrong with the, V3AH3 pod. It's a tripod that's not gonna break the bank. Of course, it's nothing crazy, but it holds the camera, it's sturdy, and it does its job. And this tripod comes in at about 130 bucks. And by no means is that a lot of money for a tripod. But I do wanna go and state this. You do not want to go cheaper than this. Back in the day, I bought multiple tripods. So I was like, fuck it. They all do the same fucking thing. And I had to keep rebuying tripods that I bought cheap every single time. So now I invest into a nice tripod. It's not within this budget, so I'm not gonna mention it. But this is just the little disclaimer to go ahead and get this tripod and spend the 130 bucks. And don't try to cut a corner. Now, once you have your tripod, you have your camera, and then all of his accessories, you are now done with the first components of having a good video, which is having a camera. So that leads us to our next component, which is good audio. Now, typically, the higher that you go with an audio equipment, the more complexity that it brings. So if you're just like, fuck it, I just want the easiest and the simplest setup whenever it comes to a good microphone, then I'd still opt in for the Elgato Wave 3 that was mentioned before in the $500 budget portion. And if you didn't watch it, then here's the timestamp that way you can just go ahead and skip to it. And that mic is if you're recording in a talking head format like I am here. However, if, let's say, for example, you're a fitness coach, or if you just do more of an on-the-go style whenever it comes to recording content. So for example, if you start showing houses as a real estate agent or whatever it might be, you're just not sitting down in a chair all day, I would still recommend the same mic that I recommended previously in the $500 budget, which is the Rode Wireless Go 2. However, if you plan on being in a studio or recording in the same spots every single time and you want that professional sound and quality, then there's two mics that I recommend for this budget. And these two mics are the infamous SM7B, which is the microphone that I'm using currently right now, or the Audio-Technica ATA97. Now for a little price comparison, the SM7B is currently 400 bucks, while the Audio-Technica is only 250. So what's the difference between the two? Well, the Shure is a dynamic mic, which means that it's pretty easy to use and it cuts out a lot of the background noises. So if you know that you have a lot of background noise, or maybe you might live in an apartment, or you just know that there's like constantly shit going around you that would make noise, that would make your audio sound bad, then the Shure is definitely a good choice for you. However, if you hate the idea of just having this shit in front of your face whenever you're recording as much as I do, then that's whenever you look into getting a pencil condenser or a shotgun mic like the Audio-Technica. And by the way, this is not the Audio-Technica, this is the MKH50. Now the idea of having a mic like this is to raise the mic out of frame. That way it's no longer in the camera or in the shot, and then it'll pick up your audio from far away. That way you can still get that professional sounding audio without it being directly in front of your face like a Shure. And by the way, just so you guys don't get the wrong idea, I do not use the Audio-Technica, I use the MKH50. However, that's a little bit out of budget, so I'm not gonna mention it today. Now, of course, it sounds awesome to not have a big ass mic in front of you and have it out of frame. That way it looks pretty nice. However, everything is a trade-off. Whenever you get a shotgun mic or a pencil condenser, what you'll notice is that it's a very sensitive microphone, which means it will pick up the background noise and all the shit around you. Plus, it's really hard to get really good sound without either post-production or a really well sound-treated room. So there's a lot more complication that goes with having a mic that's not in frame, at least that I found. So if that's okay with you and you want to look into it, then here is a link comparing the Audio-Technica to my mic that I just showed you earlier. This will be able to show you exactly how it sounds and exactly how it works. However, if you just want the easiest mic to use and still get that professional sound and quality, and you're fine with this fucking atrocity being in front of your face whenever you record, then the SM7B is going to be more than enough. But no matter the decision, both of these mics are going to be XLR mics, meaning that you need to buy an XLR cable and then as well as an audio interface to plug the XLR cable into. Now, to get a decent interface, they aren't too expensive. This one right here is really all that you need, and it's the Focus Scarlett Solo 3rd Gen, and it's only 100 bucks. Whenever I say audio interface, it sounds a little bit complicated, but literally all you have to do is take that XLR cable, which is right here, and then plug it into the interface. And then once you plug it into the interface, just plug that interface into your laptop and then you're good to go. So with that said, if you don't have any XLR cables lying around, I also will put that on the screen here, and then I'll also be in the Notion doc as always. Now, once you have either the Shure or you have the Audio Technica and an XLR cable and an interface to plug it into, then you are audible. And that concludes our second component of having a good looking shot, which leads us to number 3, which is going to be your lighting. Now, for lighting, this can go 1,000 different ways. Lighting is a pain in the ass, and it's something that I feel like a lot of people overlook and most people underestimate, but it's extremely important to getting a good looking shot. Now, if I'm being blunt, I am not a videographer. I am not the best whenever it comes to controlling light. But what I can do is I can tell you what I've done to get what I think is okay looking lighting. Now, whenever I had this budget, the easiest thing for me was to overlook all of the 100 different gadgets that you can get into whenever you're looking for good light, and instead just buy 2 lights. 1 key light, and then as well as 1 fill light, and then that was it. And then the only other thing that I got was I got some RGB lights to throw in the back, and then I was good to go. Now, if you do want to spend a lot of time to really dial in your lighting to get it exactly how you want it, then go onto YouTube and then type in best lighting setup for X budget, whatever that amount of money is for your lights. However, if you just want lights to light up your face and then plop a couple RGBs behind you, then I recommend to you 2 Godox SL 60 watt kits, and then use one of the kits as your key light and then use the other kit as your fill light. Now, if you don't know what a key light is, or you don't know what a fill light is, or you get these 2 lights and you're like, what the fuck do I do with them? Which is exactly what I was like a year ago. Then I highly recommend that you watch this YouTube video. You can either search it up now, or you can find it in the Notion doc as always. And then for the cool RGBs that I mentioned for the background, I recommend you always going for Gove lights. Gove lights are sick. I don't have my fucking phone with me anymore, but basically it gives you an app that you can put on your phone to where you can control basically your entire room. I have my lights like at the top of my room that lights up my room at Gove lights. The light strip behind the monitor is Gove lights. The blue light that's shining onto my face to give me that little bit of blue on the side of my face is Gove. My every single light within my upstairs is Gove. Basically, go look at their website, see if you see some cool lights, and if you like the lights there, go and buy a couple. And the cool thing is, if you stay with Gove, you can pretty much light up your entirety of your setup all through your phone. Basically, Gove is fucking sick. If you want lights, go to gove.com and check them out. And speaking of things to put into the background, that leads us to component number 4, which is your scene. And to the scene, I'm going to give you the same fucking answer that I gave to the $500 budget. Whenever it comes to making your scene, it is completely personal preference. I can't just give you 20 different products that are all going to look fucking sick in your background. But what I can do is I can give you some inspiration. So if you look in that Notion doc, you will find 20 different scenes that all look, in my opinion, pretty fucking good. And you can use that as inspiration to build out your own scene exactly how you like it. And like I mentioned to the $500 budget, one thing that I feel like I definitely was victim to whenever I was putting out my scene is that you don't need to go on Amazon and buy a bunch of different shit to go in the background. Most of the time, you already have everything for your background. So for example, that light, that candle, I already had those beforehand. Those plants I had beforehand, obviously the monitor I had beforehand. The only thing that I bought for this background was literally that Rodecaster, which was just for the microphone because I got a new mic, and then plus the fucking Instagram counter. But other than that, everything I already had here. I found it all in my home, and I was just like, fuck it, let's make a background. And then I bought the fucking panels to go on the wall. Outside of that, most of the time you can always find a lot of your background within your home. So do some scavenging, go look in the closet, see if you can find anything cool. If not, then look at the inspiration and then buy what you need. And that right there concludes my list for equipment for the $500 budget, and then as well as a $2,500 budget. So now it's on to software.